Can never remember what the... There we go. All right, we are recording. We should be good to go. Hi, everybody. Hello, everybody. How'd the paper read go yesterday? It went stellar, spectacularly. Gonna be doing that more. Gonna do that once a week because it was a good time and people seem to enjoy it. How do two black holes merge if they're both disconnected? What do you mean disconnected? I don't know what that question means. Working on any potential papers? I'm always working on papers. That's the whole job, right? It's the whole job. Yeah, so feel free to, ask you consider reading one of your papers? No, because that would tell you what my name is, and I don't want you to know that. Do you know all of your physics equations offhand? The ones that I regularly use, yeah, but that's good enough. Why do clouds form only with water? Well, so water vapor exists in the air, but it's not hot enough in the air for it to be steam. So depending on the partial pressure of the water vapor in the air, it'll either condense on things if there's dust around, or it won't. That's how you form clouds. Have you heard of the theorized missing law of evolution or order to go with the law of entropy? I haven't heard that. Can it be that a certain phenomenon are inherently unpredictable? Chaos theory. Well, the thing about chaos is that it is predictable. It's just mathematically impossible to predict, meaning that it's determined, it's deterministic, but it's just mathematically untenable to actually make predictions based on, because if there's any amount of error in your initial data, then you'll get incorrect predictions. Are nuclear batteries rechargeable? In principle, no, I guess. Who's going to be the next president? I don't know. Why can't the motion of Earth be proven? I mean, it is proven, like lots. What's your field of physics? So I'm mostly in differential geometry and general relativity. However, there's some overlap there with like quantum gravity and stuff like that. When did you start learning physics? As an undergraduate? I guess I was 18. Favorite classical mechanics equation? Maybe the Euler-Lagrange equations? Can you explain quantum supersymmetry? Well, supersymmetry is a thing that, unfortunately, the answer is basically no, unless you have some background. The idea behind supersymmetry is that you have certain field operators that anticommute, meaning that they square to zero and they anticommute. And so they produce fields that don't, that when you swap them, they get a negative sign. And you can think about what kinds of fields can be produced by such operators, but to go into more details would be really, really messy. Do you consider your job daunting? No, I do it every day. It seems, it's fairly straightforward for me because I've been in it for so long. Are you taking guests? I might in a bit. How do we know there's dark energy and dark matter? Well, dark matter is just an observation that there is more gravity than the matter that we have explanation for. And so we call it dark matter because that seems to be a good explanation. Or rather, we call it dark matter because it seems plausible that there's stuff that we can't see that has mass. As a div geo person, do you think most or perhaps all of physics has a geometric explanation? Yes, I do. Any advice for grad school? Be friendly with your advisor. It'll make your life a lot less miserable. Are you a professor? No, I am a postdoctoral research fellow. If nothing can escape a black hole, how does gravity escape it? Gravity doesn't escape a black hole. Gravity is what makes a black hole. It's not like gravity is being emitted from a black hole. Gravity is just what makes something a black hole. Why are sunset skies orange and the normal sky blue? So the sunset skies are orange because by the time the light from the sunset is getting to you, all of the blue light has already been filtered out. And the reason the blue light has been filtered out is because the blue light is what scatters first, what scatters most easily from sunlight in the atmosphere. And so the reason why the sky is blue is because the sunlight goes in all directions away from the sun, and then the blue light is the light that scatters back towards your eye. What would you call the process of making flow laminar? I don't know, laminarizing? Is everything made of frequencies? No. Whenever I read about black holes, they stay away from rotating black holes. Because rotating black holes are really, really messy. And a lot of the intuition for non-rotating black holes sort of carries over. How can two entangled particles can simultaneously change without any information being transmitted? Well, it's not to say that they simultaneously change. It's that there's a correlation between their values. That's all. Now, what that correlation implies depends on your interpretation of quantum mechanics. What's harder for most chem or physics? I don't know. I've never took chemistry. Do you have any idea of what happens when entering a black hole? You'll have a bad time. Thanks for the hat and mustache. What's the most interesting thing you know? I don't know. It's hard. It depends on what people find interesting, I guess. What are you researching? Currently, I'm working on some projects involving black hole asymptotics. I'm working on some kind of purely mathematical projects involving curvature descriptions of embedded hypersurfaces. Have you ever ate a hot dog with just mayonnaise? No. How well do Newtonian physics use for astrophysics? Yeah. So generally, astrophysicists really can just stick with Newtonian physics. And if they really need extra accuracy, they can add GR corrections. How come we can't have black matter compared to all the other elements? What? Black? Do you mean dark matter? I don't know what that question means. Other gravity models aside from Cotton and loop quantum that have had testable predictions? There are so many that have testable predictions. Like that video I made the other day where I talked about the other models, most of them make testable predictions. How is it anything exists if matter cannot be created or destroyed? Matter can be created and destroyed. It happens all the time. If you have a banana in your kitchen, that banana emits antimatter, and when that antimatter collides with matter, it disappears. The matter goes away. What is rapidity in special relativity? Rapidity is sort of like the measure of speed, in that it's the quantity that can go from 0 to infinity. And when you're at infinity rapidity, then you're at the speed of light. Apparently Europe, America, and hot dogs come in a can. Ew. What? Ew. Brother, ew. Brother, ew. What's your marketing strategy? I don't have one. Did you see Howard go back on Joe Rogan's show? I did, and I didn't watch it, so I'm probably not going to. How can I start learning quantum mechanics with just a physics class background? Pick up a book. There's a book by Griffiths on quantum mechanics. I think it's just called Introduction to Quantum Mechanics or something, which is fairly good. Is warp drive possible? No, at least not faster than light warp drive. Can humans achieve time travel in the future? Well, we can do forward time travel, just not backwards time travel. Any advice for high schoolers that want to be physicists? Get good grades and then go to a good school if you can. Entropy says there's a small chance of too many worlds merging. Is that restoring a quantum state? Yeah. Well, it's not that they merge. It's that they can interact with each other. But yeah, that's possible. Just very, very unlikely. Does the Copenhagen interpretation say observers are able to affect the universe in a special way? The Copenhagen interpretation doesn't say anything about what's actually happening. They just say, look, when you make an observation, wave functions collapse, and we don't know why. Explain time dilation when traveling close to the speed of light, because you can't travel at the speed of light. So when you're traveling close to the speed of light, the way that I usually explain this is that everything that has mass moves through space-time at a fixed speed, both through space and time. So if you move slower, or if you move faster through space, then you move slower through time. Yeah, I think his first name is David. No backwards time travel because there's no past to go to? No, just because in order to have backwards time travel, you need negative energy, which we have no reason to think exists. Can you explain why the Schrodinger equations state the universe is eternal? Well, so this is called the quantum eternity theorem, which is, it's not like a serious theorem, but like it is a fact about first order differential equations, which is what the Schrodinger equation is. It basically says that if the energy, which is what tells you how quickly the wave function of the universe changes, if the energy is never zero and the energy is conserved, then that means that the universe is always changing, which means that you can just keep going backwards and backwards and backwards, and you'll always have a well-defined universal wave function for your state. Is we gonna crunch big crunch? That seems plausible to me, but that's not like the currently accepted model because this is based off of sketchy data. Is the matter-antimatter thing about the banana part of a radiation given off? Yes. Why do you support spooky action at a distance? I don't. I don't think that that's a thing. I mean, if we're talking about many worlds, then we're talking about many worlds. I don't think that spooky action at a distance is a thing. Given the assumption we could control mass, do you think we could make a lens out of just gravity? Yeah, we do. They're called gravitational lenses. We can't do it because we can't move around that much mass, but it's doable. What was basically before the Big Bang? We don't know. We just don't know. When the universe was really dense, did molecules coexist in the same place? Well, there weren't molecules when it was that dense. Isn't spooky action just quantum entanglement? No. Spooky action is what happens when you make measurements. or under the Copenhagen interpretation anyway. What determines the half-life of something? Basically, it has to do with the structure of the nucleus of the atom. So like how strong the protons and neutrons are held together. The stronger they're held together, the longer the half-life will be, for example. Why do black holes have so much entropy? Because they're cosmic blenders, if you will. Everything that goes in gets shredded anyway. So maybe that's a good reason. Could you explain neutron degeneracy pressure? Yeah, the idea is roughly that neutrons are a type of matter particle. They're fermions. And matter particles can't be fermions, can't be in the same quantum state simultaneously. This is just a fundamental property of fermions. And so if you tried to get two neutrons so close that they'd be overlapping, they'd end up in the same state. And so what has to happen, if they're going to occupy the same place, they have to have different amounts of energy so that their states are different. And that energy effectively becomes a pressure pushing outwards, because if they have more energy, they have more kinetic energy, so they're jiggling around faster, so they're pushing outwards more. That's the basic gist. Is Big Bang a misnomer? I mean, sorta, I guess, but it's just a name. How does dark matter work? Why can't there be on the same table as the other matter? Well, it's not made of atoms. If it were made of atoms, we'd be able to see it. What happened to the TikTok flat earthers? They retreated to their little echo chambers. Can you explain quantum entanglement? Yeah, so unfortunately, not really. Quantum entanglement, it's a strictly, there's no classical analog that works to explain it. The basic gist is that you have two systems that are coupled in a way that when you measure them, their outcomes are always correlated. And that just means that they're really part of the same quantum system. And the fact that they're spatially separated isn't really relevant. Can you please explain how vacuum fluctuations work? Is there a connection to the Big Bang? Sort of. I mean, so vacuum fluctuations are basically just, if you measure the state of the vacuum at various times, you might get different answers, just because of roughly quantum uncertainty. And the fact that you would get different answers depending on when you measure and where you measure, that means that you might have differences in density in the very, very early universe, which means that you'll have areas of bigger mass and areas of smaller mass, which will lead to gravitational collapse at the end. Can you explain the ADM formalism? So the ADM formalism is just a Hamiltonian formulation of GR. Basically, it's just you look at some initial data on a hypersurface, on a Cauchy hypersurface anyway, and then you just evolve using the Einstein equations, and you get Hamiltonian, or you get equations of motion for the metric and the second fundamental form. Do you know what the boson field's made out of? The fields aren't made out of anything. They're kind of, at least with modern understanding, they are the bottom layer of reality. Can two gravitational waves cancel each other out? Yes. At least, basically, yes. How do we know which Hamiltonian to use for the quantum wave equations? Well, that's the question. We don't know what Hamiltonian to use. I mean, you could just write one down. It's called the Wheeler-DeWitt equations. Or you talk about for general quantum systems, because then it depends on which system we're looking at. We just quantize the classical theory usually. Sorry, I have something on my finger. There's no atoms in dark matter. How does it exist? Well, not everything's made of atoms, right? Like electrons aren't made of atoms. Where do you start to learn physics? A textbook is a good idea. Thank you for the heart. Is Einstein or Newton the greatest physicist of all time? I would put my money on Einstein. How's your day? My day was really hot today. Why does abstract math explain the physical universe so well? Well, because we invented the math to do the explaining, right? So is a field an underlying force or geometric shape of some sort? It's not a force. It's just a field is, I mean, it's a mathematical object. So it's a description of a number at every point in space, basically. And it seems to be, if you give that ontology, then it means that there is just some property of space. In addition to positions and times, there's also other properties that are kind of built in, and those are the fields. What determines the spin and shape of a galaxy aside from gravitational tidal forces? Probably just those, right? Do you think physicists are overconfident in how much they understand? No, I don't think so. Do you think the universe is infinitely small? No. And fields have built-in geometry? I mean, in a sense, yeah, but it's usually not a very interesting geometry. Would a particle of dark matter be considered a fermion? We don't know. Yeah, we just don't know. Unfortunately. All right, I'm actually going to bring up a guest, and we can answer a question or two, and then we'll go back down to answering chat.
How you doing, Blitz?
Quinny, how's it going?
I'm alive. I have a genuine question. Please just hear me out and solve this debate for me.
Is it a physics
Right?
question?
Kinda.
All right.
It's cake bread.
Is cake bread? Yeah, of course. Obviously.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's it. That's it.
All right, take care.
That was the question.
Virtual photons transfer force? Sort of. Not really. Have you written any books? No, I write papers, not books. Would you consider doing a short 5 to 10 lecture on a topic, then answering relevant questions? Maybe. Maybe I'll consider doing that at some point in the future. Solving world problems here. Yeah, water is obviously wet. A hot dog is obviously a taco. And a taco is just a folded pizza. Obviously. Are you a postdoc? I'm a postdoc. But postdocs have PhDs. So I have a PhD. I am a postdoc. Can you explain Dyson sphere? A Dyson sphere is just a hypothetical structure that you can build around the star, which is basically just a whole bunch of solar panels close to the star. That's basically it. What intuition led to realizing virtual particles can describe wave interactions? You can blame Feynman for that. And honestly, that was his most controversial contribution, is convincing people that virtual particles are real, because they're not real. They're not real things. It's just a mathematical trick. Have any of your papers been published? Yeah, I have 8 published papers or something like that. And no, you cannot read them because I don't want you to know my real name. Can you explain the point of particle accelerators? Yeah, to accelerate particles. More specifically though, you accelerate particles so you can smash them into stuff and see what comes out, because that teaches you about physics. Can you explain does dark energy push or pull? Well, it has gravity. So whatever gravity does, dark energy, dark energy, not dark matter. Dark energy, whatever it might be, if it's like a real thing, then it's a sort of like outward pressure. Are all the electrons in our atoms entangled somewhere in the universe to another electron? Are all the electrons in our atoms entangled somewhere in the universe to another electron? Well, I mean, they're generally entangled with the other electrons in the atoms. Have you been a teacher or professor before? Yeah, I taught at a university for 3 years. I'm talking about curvature of spacetime. What's the universe curving into? So when we're talking about curvature, you don't actually need to curve into anything. There is such a thing as intrinsic curvature, and then there's extrinsic curvature. You're thinking of extrinsic curvature, but extrinsic curvature isn't the only type of curvature. You can think of intrinsic curvature as just a redefinition of how distances are defined locally. What do you think about the single electron theory? I just put out a video about that. It's not true. Why do you think there are different amounts of normal and antimatter? Well, if I knew the answer, I'd go get my Nobel Prize, right? Is physics worth pursuing? I think so, but not everybody does. It's not for everybody, of course, which is, a normal thing. Anyone notice he doesn't answer real questions? I've answered plenty of real questions. I don't know what you're talking about. I want to ask, is energy a matter? No, energy is not a substance. It's a property of substances. Can you explain physics in the simplest way? You can. Physics is the study of the motion and behavior of matter at its most fundamental level. Einstein wrong? I mean, not really, unless you think Newton was wrong too. What was the paper you were reading about entanglement entropy and the Hamiltonian? This was a paper on, it was called Times Arrow and Quantum Geometric Dynamics or something like that. Is the Schwinger effect proof that something can come from nothing? In a sense, but light waves aren't nothing, right? But it does mean that matter can come from non-matter. That's certainly the case. As space expands, do atoms increase in size volume? No, because the electromagnetic force holding it together is stronger than the expansion of spacetime, or the expansion of space. How can energy have mass if it's only a property? Energy doesn't have mass. Systems with energy have mass. What do you read for pleasure? I haven't read a book for pleasure in a long time. Energy is quantized? Yeah, in some systems. What's the string theory in a nutshell? Roughly that rather than particles being point-like objects or excitations in fields, rather the fundamental objects are loops of energy in some sense. And I say energy in a really vague sense because they're not loops of stuff. It's just the fundamental object is a string, and then it vibrates in different ways to give rise to different particles. That's the rough idea. It's obviously way more complex than that, but that's the 5-second soundbite version. Can we use the observed vacuum energy to know what scale the quantum modes cut off? You can, but then it has to be super finely tuned, which is the problem. If dark energy is an outward pressure, would that contribute to the shape of a galaxy? No, the dark energy is just too weak to contribute to the shape of galaxies, really. Can you explain entropy and why people want to figure out how to reverse it? I don't know if anybody seriously wants to figure out how to reverse it. Entropy is just the tendency of systems to go from orderly to disorderly. Rather, that's the second law of thermodynamics, which talks about entropy. Do you work with Hodge theory? No, I haven't touched on Hodge theory since I was a graduate student. Can you explain entropy and why people... Oh, I already answered that. Theoretically, with only and be ever to... What? I don't know what that question is. What's torque? Torque is, in some sense, rotational force. Thoughts on the prediction of supermassive stable elements? I think it'd be really, really cool, but I doubt that they're actually, like, stable. But they might be more stable than things nearby. That would be super neat. Do you believe we will ever exceed the speed of light? No. Do you think man will ever leave our solar system? I hope so. How's the pay for theoretical physicists? 10 being the best. My pay is fairly good, but it's not like 6 figures, right? It increases number of microstates in the system. Yeah, there you go. Any theories as to why the early universe was weakly entangled? Well, I mean, the paper that we went over yesterday seems to show that that is a natural boundary condition. Do you believe destruction comes before creation or after? I don't know what that question means. Are particles vibrations in quantum fields? They're not vibrations, they're excitations. Do you think we'll ever achieve room temperature superconductors and apply them in daily tech? I think so, yeah. Can we change energy into matter? No, we can change systems. We can change non-material, non-matter systems with energy into matter systems with energy. But energy isn't a substance. It's not a thing that exists on its own. How many facts do you know that is still considered a theory? I don't know what that question means. When you use a torque wrench on a bolt, is there no stored energy in that bolt? No, it's just the force that you're exerting is being countered by the friction, and so the energy that you apply is given off as heat, essentially. Do photons really not experience time? Well, sure. Which university did you grad from? I'm not going to tell you. Do you know the speed of the expansion of the universe? Yeah, it's given by the Hubble constant, which is like 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec. About. What's a vacuum and how space different than a chamber under a vacuum? A vacuum is just, I mean, we define a vacuum as like the ground state of the universe. It's where there's nothing, but there are no true vacuums that we can make. But they're pretty close. Gravity is something you think is a fact, and it's still considered a theory. Well, gravity is a whole bunch of things. Gravity is an observed phenomenon, which is just factually true. Then we have models of gravity, which are theories. That's another word for model. Then there's laws of gravity, like Newton's universal law of gravitation. Gravity is a whole bunch of different things. But the fact that gravitation is a phenomenon that happens is a fact, right? Why is using the observed vacuum energy a fine-tuning issue if that's what's really there? Well, because the point is that the cutoff would have to be very, very precisely picked. And that's kind of just working backwards, right? It's cheating a little bit. Thoughts on emergent spacetime? It seems plausible. Can you explain why there are 8 gluons instead of 9? It's for normalization reasons, if I remember correctly. I remember learning about this in grad school, but that was like 8 years ago. Favorite physicist from the 1900s? Easily it's Einstein. It's easily the boy Einstein. The GOAT. Differences between mathematical physics and theoretical physics? Mathematical physics are much more closely related to mathematicians. Can you explain the basics of quantum mechanics? Yeah. Everything is waves, and the waves come in chunks. Aware of the amplitude? Yeah, I'm aware of it, but I don't know much about it. Do we still use M theory at all? Well, some people still study it. I don't. What are your thoughts on AI and the existential singularity? I don't really care about it. Like, it's not something I think about. At death, the energy leaves your body and goes where? Into the ground. Like the energy the energy in your body, you just decay and it becomes like your body heat just goes into the ground. Time dilation caused me to experience cognitive dissonance. Sorry. If I have a new theory, where do you publish? Well, you can send it to a journal, but unless it's actually like legitimately new, nobody's even going to look at it. Why does multiplying the energy of a branch world by its amplitude field hand wavy for energy conservation? But why are you looking at the energy of a single branch? Like, we don't do that for electrons. We don't ask, if you have a superposition of spin up and spin down, we don't ask how much energy does the up part have, because the up part is not like its own thing. Is there a different level of learning physics? I don't know what that question means. Debate Mike Burgandy on what? Is all human knowledge merely constructs or models? Yeah, roughly. It's a thought experiment and something deeply hidden. Okay. How does math relate to the information within the universe? I don't know what you mean by information within the universe. Do you think the opposite of entropy is happening? No. What physics are you studying, researching now? I mean, I work in differential geometry with intersections to like general relativity and gravitation, so can God be a physicist? Probably not. Did you learn about the new findings of why ice is slippery? I didn't, but that sounds cool. Wave-particle duality, it's not real. There's no waves, there's no particles, there's wavicles. In your opinion, will we ever be able to produce enough energy to warp space? We can warp space. It's just not very much. He's asking, is math representative of a real constant in the universe or not? I don't think math exists in the real universe. Math is something we invented to describe it. This will be uploaded to YouTube? I hope so, as long as the recording doesn't break. Yeah, as long as the recording doesn't break. Do you think the incompatibility between GR and quantum mechanics is a result of our own misrepresentation of nature? Could be, but I don't think that's likely. Is the law of conservation of energy still a viable concept? In some systems, yes. In some systems, no. Can you explain gravity? What causes it? Mass causes it. Mass and systems with energy in general. Bell's theorem would be an interesting paper for you to read. I read it a while ago. It's just not new, so I don't know. I probably won't do a peer review of it. Are scientists any closer to finding a way to harness black hole energy? Well, we know how. It's just not very practical. It's called the Penrose process. I actually have a video on it. Are you, as a scientist, are you an atheist, agnostic, or a believer? I'm an atheist. Field of physics, do you think we'll have the next boom? I don't know. Can large nuclear release an anti-gravity wave upon decay? No. No. Bob Lazar made up stuff about element 115. If you could be anywhere in space, where would it be? Well, I like Earth. I'm pretty fond of Earth. To take on the Terrence Howard claim that to discover better math, well, it's wrong. He's wrong about basically everything. Why are you an atheist? Because I don't think that God is real. It seems kind of self-explanatory. Can you explain why speed has a limit? It didn't have to be that way. It just seems to be a property of our universe. If you could solve anything, what would it be? Quantum gravity. I'd like to know the answer to that. Can we actually see atoms? Yes, we can visualize atoms now. We have good enough tech. Will we ever have stable, reliable fusion energy? I hope so. Have you ever played with any quantum computer programming? No, I haven't. Is a fourth dimension considered time or a hypercube? Well, it depends. If you're talking about our four-dimensional space-time, then we have 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. However, you could instead consider 4 space dimensions, and then you could have like hypercubes in a 4 space dimension, in like 4 spatial dimensions, for example. Negative mass and energy existed. What's your best estimate of their behavior? There are so many paradoxes that those things existed, so I don't think that they do. I wouldn't even be able to give a concise or reasonable explanation. Is there a part of the universe expanding faster than light from the perspective of the cosmic horizon? Yes. Is the Earth flat? No. What was your favorite class in undergrad, grad school? General relativity. It was my favorite. Does completely empty space exist? Do atoms have footprints? Complete empty space doesn't exist. Because there's always quantum fields in them, which are always fluctuating and stuff. And atoms, but I don't know what you mean by footprints. I don't think atoms have footprints, no. Do you think gravity changes at different scales, or do we need dark matter? Dark matter seems like the best model right now, or the best class of models. Yeah, the camera works that photographed atoms. It was using something called photography. It's pronounced, I don't know how to pronounce it. Photography, or PTCOG. It's spelled PTYCHOGRAPHY. I have a video on it, actually. Thoughts on space being another layer of atoms? I don't know what that means. Honestly, don't know what that means. If you get up a conversation with any physicist, who would it be and what would you ask them? I don't know. It's a really good question. With the rate the Earth is expanding, are we likely to the universe, you mean, are we likely to face heat death or big crunch? That is currently up for debate, actually. Is There a growing consensus that spacetime is emergent of entanglement? I mean, there's theorists that are working on that, but we have no data that supports it. It's just like a hypothesis. It's roughly, I mean, it perhaps is slightly more accepted than string theory. What are you currently doing research on? Well, I have one project on that I'm just starting, which is on like the asymptotics of black hole event horizons. I have another project that I'm working on that involves, it's more math heavy, it involves curvature invariance of Riemannian submanifolds. Ever had an interest in fluid dynamics? Zero. I have zero interest in fluid dynamics. Was solving the IFEs part of your GR class, such as the Schwarzschild solutions? I think so, but it's been a while. Why do we measure maximum x distance of a projectile with sine theta instead of cosine theta? I mean, that's just how the math falls out. Do you support string theory? Yeah, I support string theorists. I don't know if I think string theory is true, but I support string theorists doing what they're doing. Yeah, let's bring up Chunky Cajun.
All right.
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
I'm glad I found you.
What questions do you got for me?
Did you by chance listen to Terrence Howard and Weinstein?
I didn't. I've only seen clips of it on TikTok.
Did the clips drive you as batty as they drove me?
I think that Weinstein did a pretty good job of telling Terrence that he doesn't know what he's talking about, except a few times when I think he should have pushed harder. Yeah,
I was like, okay, so putting it out there, I understood nothing. Like, I'm just not where I'm at. I understood nothing about it. But listening to him talk, it just seems like a lot of gobbledygook to try to make it seem like you sound smarter than you are. And it sounded like Weinstein or Weinstein actually understood the things that he's talking about and was trying to say in the nicest way possible, you need to stop talking about this stuff.
Well, yeah, Weinstein actually has a PhD in physics, so he does know what he's talking about, even if he's wrong about a lot of things.
Yep, there you go. That's all I wanted was to come up. I want to come up. I haven't talked to you in a while and just want to say hello and ask how you're doing. You're living out in the States now, right?
Yep. I'll be back in a year.
Where you at? Where you at? What you doing?
I'm just working out here for a temporary position.
How close is that to the theater?
To the what?
To the theater. I don't want to say the word because I don't want to get you bananas.
Not close.
Okay, so you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. And the Czech Republic's in NATO, so if anything goes bad, the US has my back.
There you go. Funny story. If you ever, when you come back to the States, you go to Central Texas and you eat Texas barbecue, that is a Czech form of cooking meat.
That's what I've heard. Actually. They have a weird. Anyway.
Yeah, it's so when you come, just understand that. So I would say try it in the Czech and then come to Texas, and then when you do it and you eat, I want to know the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to do that. But I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go back to answering questions. But thanks for being here, man.
I understand. Have a good one, Blitz. Thank you.
Take care. Chunky Cajun and I go a long way back. We used to debate politics and stuff like over a year ago, and he dropped out of the debate scene, and he has his own stuff going on now, but he's always been a super nice guy. Can you explain why there are 8 gluons instead of 9? I don't remember the answer to that. People ask me this question all the time. I should look it up, though, and just remind myself. It's something to do with like normalization, if I remember correctly. Do you think creations come after destruction? I don't know what that means. Well, in TikTok sense, a year is a long time, yeah. Have you ever looked into stochastic quantization? It rings a bell, but not broadly. You debate politics? I haven't done it in a while because everybody's focused on Trump right now, and I just don't care about. I mean, I care about that, but like, I just am not interested in doing all the research for that. No, I'm going to vote. Of course I'm going to vote. Explain the one electron, one positron universe theory. I have a video on that quite recently, so go watch it. How did light not move freely through space if space always existed? Well, because space used to be filled with ionized matter, so like protons and electrons just kind of flying around. And photons are easily absorbed by charged particles. What's your opinion, or what was the question? Is many worlds the most parsimonious interpretation of quantum mechanics? I think so. What's your opinion on fusion energy? I hope that we get it eventually. Can you vote from Europe? Yeah, it's just an absentee ballot. What if I told you I counted WD-40? That's phrased two ways. Cool. What's your opinion on superdeterminism and hidden variables? I'm not that partial to superdeterminism, but it's a possibility that I can't exclude. Why do astrophysicists assume the Earth and Sun formed at the same time? They don't. They actually have like an understanding that the Earth formed 50 million years after the Sun or something like that. How good do you have to be at math on a scale of 1 to 10 to be a physicist? You have to be better than like 95% of the public, at least. So all of space was filled with ionized particles. Yep. Is a postdoc position actually a physicist version of a higher gun? No, a postdoc is just you're a new PhD, so it's usually just like to get your research chops up to show that you can actually research independently. Do you believe in religions? No. What's space? Space is all this stuff. Have you followed NASA development of nuclear rockets? No, not really. Why do physicists seem like they're just guessing at this point? Well, they don't. I don't know why you think that they do seem like they're just guessing, because they're not. It seems like the field's crashed. It hasn't. It's progressing well. Are you married? Yes. Yes, I am. The funny thing about the people who think that physics is stagnating just aren't familiar with the field. That's all. Does the second law of thermodynamics mean the universe can't be infinite? No. The second law of it's even really hard to say if the second law of thermodynamics even applies to the universe as a whole, because typically when we think of the second law of thermodynamics, this is a statement about systems in equilibrium. So if you have a system evolving from equilibrium to equilibrium, then the entropy of the later equilibrium state will be higher than the entropy of the earlier equilibrium state, so long as the system was a closed system. But we don't actually know if our universe is very, very far from equilibrium, so it's hard to even say if it applies to our universe, because entropy is a what's it called? There's a word for it, and I taught this subject, and I just don't remember what the word is. Starts with an E. Anyway, entropy is a property of equilibrium states. It's not a property of like states out of equilibrium. You can define it in states out of equilibrium, but it's not that straightforward. How long did it take to become a physicist? Well, from birth, like I guess 28 years. No system has ever moved to a higher energy and higher entropy. I don't know what that question means. My wife is not a physicist. No. Just how will the universe end? Hard to say. I'm leaning towards recollapse, and then no, not ergodic. It's maybe it doesn't start with an E. I don't know. It'll come to me later. If ionized particles filled all of space, does that mean that there was an infinite amount of matter? If the universe is infinitely large, then yeah. Yes, you are dumb. No, you're not dumb. Hermetic matrices is very funny, though. Is the speed of light slowing down? Doesn't seem to be. Is it possible to actually understand undergraduate physics as an average student? It depends on what you mean by average student. I don't know what that means. I mean, like, you have to learn the physics, otherwise you're not going to understand it. That much is true. What's your IQ? I don't know. Just reading about how we can quantize systems in a D+1 dimensional classical system. Yeah, I think I've heard of that, actually. Can you tell me what solid-state physics is and why it's different than particle physics? Solid-state physics is an old term for what's now called condensed matter physics. Condensed matter physics is the study of many body systems. So you have a bunch of things interacting, but usually it's at low energies. So like think about like studying magnets. Whereas particle physics is about like just a few particles colliding and then seeing what sprays out. The Maxwell definition of entropy requires equilibrium, but not Boltzmann version. Yeah. So that's true. That's true. So we have to be a little bit careful about what kind of thermodynamic system we're talking about here. If the universe collapses, will a new one replace it? Maybe. Are we devolving? No. There is no such thing as devolution. When the universe crunches, does time restart exactly like rewinding a VHS type? Who's to say? Wait, I thought matter was finite in the universe, even if the universe is infinite. No, if the universe is infinite, then it seems plausible to me that there's an infinite amount of matter. I love how you'll believe you will end up believing a creator at the end. You're in an enviable position. I don't think I will. It's the average workday for a theoretical physicist. Lots of reading of papers, lots of calculations, failed calculations most of the time, some meetings with colleagues, maybe some writing if you're at that stage in a paper. Will two neutron stars that merge end up as a black hole, or do some end up as a bigger neutron star? I think that they all have to end up as black hole. I think. Because just because the masses are the mass band is so constrained. Do you have a good read on quantum chromodynamics? No. I learned QCD from, or at least what I know of QCD, like in my quantum field theory classes. I learned it from a professor's personal notes. So what's at the edge of the universe? There might not be an edge. In fact, there's probably not an edge. What does your workflow look like? It's I don't have like a plan, but I have some notes that I have, and I try to basically on each day of the week work on a different project. Tell me everything you know about gravitational waves in 4D de Sitter space. No. Well, it's not de Sitter space if there's gravitational waves. You can have asymptotically de Sitter space, but gravitational waves are really, really hard to describe in de Sitter space because you don't have like a null infinity, so characterizing these things are complicated. I have heard of D-Wave, and it seems cool. How did you decide what you end up researching? I started working on the stuff that my advisor was working on. Does Kerr's paper change how we describe black hole mergers? No. No. Because all we're talking about is the outside of the black hole anyway. How do the ancients build what they built? With engineering, the same way that we build what we build? Did you go to school in the US? Yes. Is there anything to suggest the universe is a cycle? Well, we don't know, but it seems plausible anyway. Somebody asked, do you work in academia? Yeah, I work at a university. Can physics help us understand consciousness? Maybe, but I suspect not. How do you remember all of this? I don't know. You work in the field for a long time and you start to just accumulate facts. What part of the universe that doesn't fit the laws of physics? I don't think there's a single part of the universe that doesn't fit the laws of physics. There are some anomalies that we can't explain, if that's what you mean. We couldn't build the pyramids? Sure we could. It's just stacking bricks, or really big bricks. Anything about the B-field-Brown effect? I've never heard of that. What is a flat universe most likely suggests it's an infinite universe? It's not most likely, it's just that's the most parsimonious. So if you have a flat universe, then there's a few different topologies that are available. Well, there's a lot of different topologies, but the most basic topologies would be like a Pac-Man universe. That would be one type of topology. Another would be just an infinitely large universe, two different topologies. The Pac-Man universe just has an extra assumption, namely that there's a length scale. And so, the parsimonious case would be an infinitely large universe. How come time moves slower for things that move faster? The basic idea is that you travel through space-time at a fixed rate. If you travel faster through space, you travel slower through time. That's the basic gist. Matter is not created nor destroyed. Would that mean our souls are recycled? Matter is created and destroyed all the time. When has the anthropic principle failed? I don't think it ever has. What's the best argument to tell someone Earth is not flat? Sunsets don't make any sense. Ever solved Jackson 619, assuming that was your text? I don't remember which problems we did, but it was awful, and yes, we used Jackson. How has not one single physicist ever heard of the B-field-Brown effect? Well, let's find out what it is. Is it a physics thing? It seems like it's not like a... It seems like it's just not like a super studied thing. So that's probably why. Why is time 1D but space is at least 3D? That's a good question. It seems that if time wasn't one-dimensional, and then we wouldn't have stable configurations of matter. Oh shoot, dang it. I just interrupted, to Google that, I interrupted my own recording. So I'll have to cut this. Restart. Sir, where does mass come from? It comes from the Higgs mechanism, and it comes from the mass energy equivalence of Einstein. Opinion on Eveready and quantum mechanics. I like it. I like it quite a lot. It's my favorite, actually. Does exotic matter exist? It depends on what you mean by exotic, I guess. What's your take on the current state of Betelgeuse? What take is it? It's going to blow up eventually, right? The universe isn't infinite. Could there be anything outside the universe? The universe is kind of defined to be everything. So no, not really. Elaborate on the sunset so I know how to explain this to flat earther. Yeah, so the sun goes down. It doesn't get further away. So If it goes down, that only works on a globe. Have you followed the money on the Einstein field equations? Oh, good question. Why do we perform mathematical functions in higher dimensions like linear algebra? Because it can be useful. Is a third type of dimension possible? No, it's not. Basically, when we're talking about dimensions, like the type, time versus space, this is referring to the signature of the space-time metric, or the metric of the place that we live in, and it can either only be positive or negative. You can't really have anything else. At least if you're living in in some sort of like commuting space-time, I guess. I guess you could have like imaginary signature as well, but do you remember that one time when I was born? I do. Yeah, the matter that could theoretically be used to warp drive. Yeah. So exotic matter is probably not a real thing. Yeah, the Einstein field equations are very, very long. Are we inside a black hole right now? No, I don't think so. Universes via white hole black holes in theory. What? What is energy? Energy is a property of matter that is conserved when the system under study has unchanging laws of physics over time. Why do accelerating charges radiate? The Maxwell equations, basically. What's the most important discovery in physics in your lifetime? In my lifetime, probably dark energy. Have you ever tried to measure deviances between the three space? I don't know what you mean by that. Deviances and what? What university did you attend? I'm not telling you. Do you listen to Sam Harris? I don't. Why is perpetual motion impossible? Thermodynamics. Basically, any process that has... Actually, it's just true that it's just any process results in a increase or constant entropy. And so you can't have repeatable processes with no loss, basically. Why doesn't the United States have a better train system? Because capitalism or something. Is all matter energy? No. Energy is not a substance. What did you think of Weinstein and Howard? Weinstein wasn't harsh enough. Can you give an elementary summary of dark energy? Dark energy is the name that we give for the phenomenon that seems to be driving the expansion of the universe. We can describe it as kind of an outward pushing at all points in spacetime. Why can't zero be divided? Because that's just how we define the operations. Oh no, I got a bug bite. Are you a fan of Darwin? Like as a person? I don't know anything about him as a person. Scientists at the University of California said that the amount of matter in the universe is only 31%. Yes, that would be the total matter, the matter content of the universe. The rest would be dark energy. Also, the University of California is not a single university. What do you think of Weinstein in general? Generally, I think he's kind of a hack. What kind of bug do you think it was? Probably a mosquito. It's around that time. All right, let's bring on Jacob the Machine.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Jacob, how's it going?
Doing good. So, do you follow any of Darwin's work on evolution?
I'm not a biologist. I'm a physicist. Do you have a physics question?
No, I thought you were like an atheist guy that debates people.
I am an atheist, but this is not that live.
Oh, okay. I guess when you do that live, I'll come back.
All right, take care. All right, let's try somebody else. This person is not connecting. Would you like to meet Newton and tell him about our current physics? Newton was kind of an incel, but yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Wednesday is Ask a Physicist Day. Exactly. All right, Big Benno is not connecting. How can a neutrino be electrically neutral and have a magnetic moment? That's a good question, but it does. What branch of physics are you most interested in? Gravitational physics. Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson does simplify things. That's true. Do you believe in the theory of parallel universe? No. Leonard Susskind is fairly good, but he's very much an idea guy. He doesn't really do calculations anymore. How would a particle with positive mass physically interact with a particular particle with negative mass? There's not really a good answer to that question. That's one of the reasons why we think negative mass probably can't exist, because it's not really a thing. Higgs boson is more a field than individual particles. The Higgs boson is an excitation of the Higgs field. Can light bend around corners? Yes, it can. How did we discover the gravitational constant in the universe? Well, you can just measure it. You can just measure the gravitational attraction between two things. How are neutrinos proven other than mass? Well, we can detect them with like big, giant detectors. We can see like little flashes of light that come from the neutrinos interacting with electrons. Latest information is the universe is larger than originally thought. I haven't heard of that. But generally be very, very skeptical of those kinds of things. Have you ever met Neil Tyson? No, I haven't. Field excitations are also called particles. Yep. No, fields aren't nothing. They're just not made of something smaller. What made you interested in gravitational physics? Black holes. Is it better to know answers to not know answers in science or to have incorrect answers or assumptions? It's better to not know. Is the ice cube neutrino detector menaced by climate change? Probably not. Real-time dilation is just measure difference via clock count, not age. No, everything experiences time dilation, so you would age slower too. Can you explain ADS-CFT correspondence? In simple terms, the idea is that roughly there's a conjectured relationship between the physics of some lower dimensional toy universe that doesn't have gravity and the physics of a bulk universe with gravity. That's the basic idea. Have you ever met Michio Kaku? No, I haven't. You're still doing Sunday Live with Jorge and the other geniuses? Occasionally, if I'm not doing something else. What's your salary? Like 34, like I think it's like 39K pre-tax. I always have to redo the math. How do you feel about quantum gravity? It's cool, and I want to see the answer. If you said my reverse forces, would you reverse time? I don't know what you mean by reverse forces. I don't know my IQ, by the way. The pseudo chef. I just don't know my IQ. But nowhere in the study was age mentioned by atomic clocks and Heffel Keating. Well, no, the point is that it happens to all molecules and all atoms and all things. So, which means that it happens to you too, because you're made of those things. Dollars or euros? Dollars. Well, yeah, but I also live in a low cost of living country, so. Do we understand the mechanism which causes virtual particles? Virtual particles aren't real. They're not a real thing. They're a mathematical trick. They're not a real thing. Should I take abstract algebra in undergrad as a physics math major? It certainly is not going to hurt. Do you have a favorite toy model topology which may not be necessarily be how we model spacetime? I mean, yeah, like R31 is the nicest toy model that I'm familiar with. Or S3 cross R1 is also quite nice. Possible to pursue PhD in physics with undergrad in electrical engineering? Possible. Going to be hard though. Would Nikola Tesla's energy tower have worked? No. Hawking radiation is based on the virtual particles. No, it's not. You don't need virtual particles to have Hawking radiation. That's just one way to explain it to a lay public, but you don't need them. They don't have to exist. How is the universe more dense in the past if it was always infinite? Well, density can change because density is just a measure of the local amount of matter in a given region. If more matter is concentrated in a given region, then it's more dense. What about LK99? It's not real, unfortunately. What about optics photonics PhD with E undergrad? I don't know. Probably can. What's something new interesting you've learned this year? This year, I learned so much. I learned a lot about quantum gravity. That's what I learned. I learned about this, the DESI results probably, actually. Why are there three distinct images of the quasar in the new JWST pic rather than one stretched one? Just because of the mass distribution. It just bent it so that, it's just because of the shape of the mass distribution and because the thing is not directly behind. I haven't seen the three-body problem, no. Wouldn't the energy tower have worked? No. Oh, why wouldn't it have worked? Because there's no free energy. It's just not a real thing. Are we allowed to ask about your wife? I mean, you can, but I might not answer. What are the limitations of quantum entanglement? Can we vibrate one to vibrate the other? No. So once you start doing something to one, it breaks the entanglement. What are you looking forward to in the future in physics? Quantum gravity would be cool. Room temperature superconductors would be cool. Yeah, those are two things that I think would be pretty cool. Fusion would be cool. Could you explain how causation cannot be applicable to before the Big Bang? Well, causation isn't really a thing that we worry about in physics. Like, we just have equations, and the equations tell us what happens. Like, the causation is a very philosophy question. That's like not really the worry of physicists. We care about causal structure, but that's like influence. It's not like, some sort of like metaphysical cause, right? Who's smarter, you or your wife? Well, I would say that she's smarter than me in a lot of ways, and I'm smarter than her in some ways. What's the opposite of gravity? The opposite of gravity? It is itiv arg. What's beyond the observable universe? Probably just more universe. Let me debate. Today's not a debate live. Can the uncertainty principle be overcome by entanglement? No. Do you have any peers who are theists? Not that I know of, but we don't really talk about that stuff. What realistic physics breakthrough would most help climate issues today? Fusion. Thoughts on cold fusion? Not possible unless it's muon-induced. When sound turns into heat and it travels through matter, can it leave an imprint in the matter? It can make it hotter. What do you know about the Schwinger limit? Isn't the Schwinger limit, doesn't that have to do with the, at that point, like if it's about electromagnetic energy density, if the electromagnetic energy density is higher than the Schwinger limit, then you have spontaneous particle creation. Isn't it that thing? Is she a scientist? No, she's a lawyer. So also very smart, just in a different area. Is research happening now that you would think could change your understanding of the world? Yeah, of course. What causes the wave function of particles to collapse from its quantum? Well, I don't think that actually happens. But if you take one interpretation of quantum mechanics, then it does happen, and we don't know why. How much was your PhD? Nobody pays for a PhD in physics. How close is mathematical physics to theoretical physics? Fairly close, but we're more like mathematicians than we are like data people. Well, law does she practice? Well, she can't practice law here because we're in a country where she is not barred. So she is currently not practicing, but she's passed the bar. She finished law school, so she is a lawyer, just currently not practicing because she can't hear. Is there anything in physics that works like pop science quantum entanglement? Oh, I don't know what pop science quantum entanglement is, so. What are your thoughts on category theory after self-studying it? Well, I never finished. I'm still baffled and confused by it. What's your interpretation of quantum mechanics? I prefer the many worlds interpretation. Can you please explain the idea that entangled particles are connected by wormholes? Well, I don't think it's true, so. If everything came from a single point, wouldn't that mean everything could be connected quantumly? Yeah, sure. Why is string theory in the toilet as of recently? It's not. The only people who are complaining about string theory are not string theorists. If gravity is classical, does that mean QFT's high confidence in gravitons is wrong? Yeah, but gravity is not classical. Explain the many worlds interpretation. Roughly that if you can have superposition at a small scale, like a combination of up and down electron spins, then you can have superposition on a large scale, and our universe is just in a superposition, and the different pieces of the superposition are worlds. They're not like actual separate worlds. Is it normal to start physics at the age of 16? Sure, yeah. I have to pay very little only for my first year of my PhD master's on route is that. I mean, it's not so bad, but like a PhD program worth their salt is going to give you a stipend. Thoughts on Sabina Hosenfelder? I think that she's too cynical. If everything came from a single point, does that mean the single point was finite? Well, maybe, but I don't think that everything came from a single point. How does gravity dissipate from the center of mass? I don't know what you mean by dissipate from the center of mass. Is antimatter real? Very real. Your bananas make antimatter. What are the metaphysics beyond quantum fields? There is no metaphysics beyond quantum fields. You can either think that they're ontologically real, or you can think that they're not, and they're just a mathematical tool. Feynman, goat or overrated? He's very, very good. A recent study showed that electrons are perfectly round. Thoughts? Well, they're not perfectly round, but they're round to within all data that we have access to, right? Any good physics media resources you like? PBS Spacetime is my go-to one. Does our understanding of physics apply to everything, for example, is fly under the same laws as human? Yes. Is Europe better than the US? In some ways, yeah. In some ways, no. How do bananas make antimatter? Well, there's a certain type of potassium that bananas have some of, and that potassium is radioactive. And when it undergoes radioactive decay, it emits some antimatter. Namely, it emits an antimatter electron, a positron. How do photons not experience time? They are null. They travel along the null geodesics, and there is no proper time along null geodesics. Does the length of the vacuum modes that they're observed cutoff pop up anywhere else? Not really. How can space create more of itself from itself? It's just stretching. I don't know what you mean by creating more, but like, say it was, why is that a problem? Is self-reference the hardest problem to solve for a formal system? Sure. Anything interesting come out of LIGO since the one black hole merger? Yeah, they've detected like 70 black hole mergers. You ever thought about being a host on a call-in show The Line? I don't know what that is. How do we see the background radiation? With telescopes. Where can you read physics papers for free? Archive.org, arxiv.org. How do you reconcile the existence of GNZ11 with the Big Bang? Doesn't it disprove the Big Bang? No, it just means that we have to modify our galactic evolution models. Are your fingers really touching? No. Yeah, I mean, in whatever sense that they're, in whatever sense touching means, then they're touching. How was there heat before space and time began? Who said that space and time began? Is space stretching, or is it more of it being created? There's not a difference. There's no way to distinguish the two. Does existence require being? Go find a philosopher and ask them that. Or flat Earth is really just trolling. Some of them actually believe it. In what medium does light travel the slowest? In principle, you can make it effectively stop. I know that supercooled rubidium gas can make it travel really slowly. Can you suggest some science books that are easy for non-experts to understand? Easy? Well, easy is boring, but A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking is quite good. They pay the host to come on. Maybe I'll maybe DM me about it, and I'll see if it's something I'm interested in. Wouldn't free will be an incredibly hard problem to solve since now we were talking about true self? Yeah, maybe. Do you agree with string theory, loop quantum gravity? No. Do you participate in public debates at your university or anywhere? No. Take care, Tony. If photons have no mass, how does the solar sail work? Because they have momentum. Even though they don't have mass, they do have momentum. Why does space only stretch between galaxies and not everywhere? Well, it tries to stretch everywhere, but there's stuff holding space together. Gravity is strong enough to keep space contracting. Because gravity basically is like the contraction of space, like normal gravity. And so the gravity near stuff is strong enough. What's the purpose of antimatter? It doesn't have a purpose. It's just a part of our universe. What is your top hunch on what dark matter is? Probably some sort of particle. Can you clear up common misconceptions about academia from students or laymen? Well, I don't know what the misconceptions are. What circularizes Oort cloud object orbits after they're scattered from inner solar system? It's a good question. I don't know. Are wormholes warp drives that can go faster than light and anti-gravity possible? I suspect not. Are there a book you recommend a bit more in depth than A Brief History of Time, but not a textbook? More in depth than A Brief History of Time, but not a textbook? No. Maybe Sean Carroll's Something Deeply Hidden, but that's not about like cosmology. That's about like quantum mechanics. What's a positron? It's an antimatter electron. Can light be seen in slow motion? I don't know what that question means. Requires faith to believe in physics, explains separation from philosophy. What? What medium does light travel in? Well, it depends on what's around. Light can travel through glass, it can travel through water, it can travel through a vacuum. All right, let's bring on Nikomake. Nico. Oh, okay. Let's bring on Great Scott. Hey, Great Scott, how's it going? You there?
Oh shit! I clicked it. Sorry.
It's okay.
I love you. By the way, you're awesome.
Thanks. Take care.
Hey, hey.
Oh, did you actually have a question? If you did, you can come back up, but you're gonna have to wait again.
Hey, what's up, Dr. Blitz?
Hey, how's it going? What questions you got for me today?
I had a. It's not mine. Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem.
I'm at a McDonald's.
You're good.
I just had a quick question. So, if you have two black holes that are flying past each other, and you know they kind of make a bulge shape, like an egg shape, as they get close, because it adds the gravity of the other black hole to the opposing one, right?
You mean like when the event horizons overlap?
Yeah. Well, they don't overlap, but as they get close to each other, there's sort of a bulge effect on the black hole because you're adding the other one's black hole's gravity to the other one,
Sure.
Right? My thought was like, if that bulge were to wrap around something and then they pass each other and it snaps back, would that object have entered and then exited the black hole?
Nope. If it enters the black hole, so the thing about event horizons is that they're global structures. So the position of the event horizon depends on the entire future history. So if something is in the event horizon, if something is within the event horizon, then by definition they can't escape. If they can escape, then they're not within the event horizon.
Got it. Yeah, it's just a weird thought experiment. So, anyways, I'll let somebody else come up.
All right, take care, Dustin.
Yep.
Do cats know they're cats? Probably not, honestly. I did say future history, that's true. It's just the language that we use. Is the double slit experiment being misrepresented by the media and public? Yes. Quantum gravity? What about it? It's cool. It's a neat idea. When was Blackmore proven to be a thing? Just well, I don't know what that means. Can you come back up? In a minute, Great Scott. Can life exist around a quasar? I suspect not. Does mass just disappear when a black hole closes? I don't know what you mean by closes. Matter that falls into a black hole can't escape. Red light therapy sounds fake, honestly, but I'm not a doctor, so don't believe me. I mean, I'm not that kind of doctor. Well, the thing about quantum gravity is that we have good reason to think that gravity must be fundamentally quantum. So the question is how does that work? What commonly misunderstood concept would you like to correct? Oh, there's so many. Entanglement doesn't have anything to do with fast and light communication. That'd be a good one. Is there any reason why we feel life should exist in recognizable form? That's a question for biologists. Do black holes have habitable zones where the stable systems can exist? Yes, but they don't produce light, so it's going to be very, very cold and not very habitable. When are you going to do the paper reading? On Tuesdays. What are the reasons gravity can be quantized? Well, we don't know how to quantize it, but one of the ways that you can see that gravity kind of has to be quantized is because we know that quantum systems are quantized, or quantum systems are behave in a quantum mechanical way, so there's some sort of superposition, and things with mass can be in superposition, which means that the gravitational field must be able to be in superposition because you'd have a superposition of mass with gravitational field and mass with gravitational field. Why can't we just quantize general relativity instead of making it smooth? We'd like to, but it doesn't work every time we try. Can you describe how to do differentiation in a simple way? Yeah, so you just all you do is you look at how your function changes and you divide it by the amount of distance that it changed over. Do you plan on creating YouTube? I have a YouTube channel. Is it a simplification to say light moves slower in a medium? No. I mean, it's just true that light does move slower. Oh, I have to sneeze. All right, we're good. How is your consciousness selected for a brain, or I'm not a biologist. You think the universe will ever stop expanding? Possibly. When do you think that collider thing in Europe will produce an observable amount of antimatter? That's not their goal, so I don't think that they ever will. Why can't science make water but know the formula? We can make water, you just burn hydrogen. That's how you make water. What do you mean by superposition? It's like when you're the best way to explain superposition is something like playing two different notes on a guitar at the same time. The sound is in a superposition of two different sounds. Why can nothing be faster than the speed of light? The speed of light is not like something special about light. It's just that it's the fastest anything can go. And that's just how our universe happens to have an upper speed limit. It didn't have to be that way, but it is that way. Do electrons have a resonant frequency with which they vibrate around the nucleus? Not resonant in the way that you'd think, but sort of. Did you know that light only makes 7% of people sneeze? Yes, I did, and it's called the photic sneeze. What's it called? The photic sneeze reflex, and I have it. Do you use conditioner? Yeah, of course. Any arguments against fine-tuning? Yeah, so many. Like, what's the probability space? Why can nothing exceed this? I already answered that. There's no, it's only 7. I think it's like, well, it's some small percentage, but not everybody. How do you explain physics when someone asks what it is? It's the study of the motion and makeup of matter at the most fundamental level. They're doing a show in about 4 hours. You should watch if you have time to watch for a bit. I will be asleep in 4 hours. What are the potential technological applications of research in condensed matter physics? So much, like different kinds of like quantum computers and new states of matter that might have technological applications and superconductors and all sorts of stuff. Nanomaterials. If light moved slower, would time have to adjust? No, we would just live in a universe with a slower speed of light. Do you think we will discover naturally occurring wormholes? No, I don't think so. How does the Higgs particle interact with matter and its mass? The Higgs particle, the Higgs boson, is just an excitation in the Higgs field. And the Higgs field is what things interact with to gain mass. So they interact with the Higgs field, and it's kind of like a sort of like a cosmic molasses. Think of like how slowly you would have to walk through molasses. The Higgs field kind of behaves that way for particles, and it slows them down, which means that they gain mass, because only things with zero mass go at the speed of light. Have you heard of string theory and its extensions, like M theory, before can you explain this to me? Yes, I've heard of those things. String theory is the idea that, string theory is the very broad idea that matter is not fundamentally made of particles at the fundamental level, but of loops of string, basically, or little strings. And M theory is a kind of unified attempt to combine all of the different string theories, because there's many different kinds. Have you ever invented any math? Yeah, all the time. That's my day job. Any mathematical functions? If you mean like invented, do you mean like given names to certain functions? Do you think the math needed to quantize gravity doesn't exist yet, and that's why we have problems? Maybe. You said nothing is faster than light. What would you think would happen if we were to confirm tachyons? Tachyons are not a real thing. Are there any official ethical boundaries to what you can research as a physicist? Not really. Is string theory real? I mean, it's a real theory, but does it represent our universe? Probably not. Does that mean that there's a ground energy level for the Higgs boson? Yes. I've spoken with Mike Burgundy before, yeah. Is the electron still an electron at 0 Kelvin? Yeah, sure. Do you believe the multiverse theory? No. Would you ever collab with any other physicists on social media? Yeah, and I have. Thoughts on terraforming planets? Is it possible? Why or why not? It seems possible, just really, really expensive. Do you think the double slit experiment theory has a reasonable scientific explanation? Yes, it's called quantum decoherence. Do you ever watch PBS Spacetime? I do. Matt O'Dowd is really good. Consciousness was the ontological substance. Would you say it's still physical? I don't know. It depends on what consciousness is. What field of physics do you study? Differential geometry and relativity. Who's the smartest physicist of the 21st century? There's a lot of people. A lot of people. Smartest? Probably Witten. Which is an answer nobody likes, but probably the case. Why do we see the same stars every night, even though we are moving and rotating as they are? As are they? Well, we don't see the same stars every night. In like June, you see different stars than January. What is the God particle? A terrible name for the Higgs boson. How does the concept of closed time-like curves relate to time travel? Well, you need closed time-like curves in order to have time travel. But if you end up on a closed timeline curve, i.e. if you end up doing time travel, then you'll get stuck there forever. Was Stephen Hawking a good physicist or just a really well-known one? He was a very good physicist. Do you think we'll ever have a unified physics theory? I hope so. Why doesn't anyone like Answer Witten? Oh, people just think he's overrated because he's a string theorist. But he is probably still the most intelligent physicist alive. Do you think time travel will ever be achieved by human beings? To the future, sure. To the past, no. Do you believe in the multiverse theory? No. Can quantum computers exist? Yes, and they already do. Is there a true climate change? Yeah, it's happening. It's a real thing. Well, wouldn't stick with string theory? I mean, he's done a lot of things, but he was like kind of like one of the people leading the charge. Who would be your role model in a world of physics and why? I mean, Albert Einstein, easily. Do you guys use simulation software? Some of us do. Not all of us. Antimatter and matter annihilate. Do they have to be the same kind? Yes, they do. They do have to be the same kind. So electrons can only annihilate with anti-electrons. What does it mean that a particle is a field excitation, not a particle? Well, it means that it's not a particle. It means that it's like a little bump in a field. But beyond that, you can think of them as particles. It's a good approximation. Do you think humans will live to travel to another galaxy? Another galaxy? Probably not. Would you rather fist fight Newton or Heaviside? Newton. Newton was an incel. Is anti-gravity possible? No, probably not. What does a black hole make then? I don't know what that question is related to. I don't know why black holes would make multiverses. What's a field? A field is a description of a number at every point in space. The quantum field is not material. In which sense is it still physical? Well, who's to say it's not physical? Or who's to say it's not material? Was it a moon landing or a land mooning? Good point. Will Wheaton versus Will Witten. It's Ed Witten. I think that Will Wheaton probably wins. Okay, but what if positron touches a proton or neutron? Nothing happens. How does the ADS-CFT correspondence connect gravity and quantum field theories? The ADS-CFT correspondence says that there's gravity, which is dual in a sort of mathematical way, to quantum field theory in a lower dimension. Will we use quantum computing in average computers soon? Probably never in average computers. I don't know who Jeffrey West is. Can anyone learn or study physics? In principle, yeah. It's just hard. 1 versus 1 me in a math contest right now to prove your worth. You're not even in the guest box. Does the gluon ball particle really exist? I think that it was potentially detected a few months back, the glue ball. Will the theory of everything be beautiful? I hope so. Otherwise, I'll be very disappointed. Whose frame is the muon's time counted when close to C? Well, are you asking about like what frame is the decay determined? Because the decay is determined in the frame of the thing doing the decaying. Can you explain the single electron theory? I have a video on it. Go watch it. It's recent, from a few days ago. Has like 200,000 views or something. 80,000 views? I don't know. Is zero-point energy real? Yes, and I have a video on it, but it's not useful. You can't pull energy out of it. Are your videos on YouTube? Some of them are, yeah. Do you think the moon landing was fake? No, it was very real. Favorite class to teach? I like teaching like classical mechanics. That's just a fun class to teach. The decay frame and the speed frame aren't the same. Yeah, no, I know. So the decay frame is the frame in which, like when you're trying to say that the lifetime of muon is however many microseconds, you count that in the reference frame of the muon, not in the reference frame of the lab. What's your highest merit, and do you think you'll ever win a Nobel Prize? I probably won't win a Nobel Prize. I'd like to, but I probably won't. Like just statistically, it's unlikely. My highest merit? I don't know what that means though. Can I share with you a science paper? Is it published? Like on the archive or something? What's the most bizarre fact about the universe that blows your mind? That it might be infinite. That's weird. Is mathematics too complicated for most physicists to understand string theory? Probably. Can I share my universe? Oh, okay. No, I mean the like age dilates. It does. Like the electron doesn't age as fast from our perspective when it's moving close to the speed of light. Is the Big Crunch theory still a leading theory of the end of the universe? It's not leading. but it's a possibility. Do you subscribe to Flat Earth Dave? No. String theory or M theory or neither? I don't think either are true. What is your favorite math subject? Geometry? Yeah, I am a geometer. Why do scientists think the universe might be infinite? Well, because it fits the data like really well. Do experimental and theoretical physicists have beef? No. What are the implications of the holographic principle for black hole entropy? Well, the holographic principle explains why black holes have the entropy they have. Is everything in the universe determined? According to some interpretations of quantum mechanics, yeah. Does that make sense now why age doesn't dilate? The muon's time is different frame than right, so the age of the muon changes more slowly when it's moving quickly. Does physics have anything to say about the hard problem of consciousness? Probably, but I don't have anything to say about it. I have some existential crises, yeah. What role do non-perturbative effects play in quantum field theory? Oh, all of the important ones, like sphalerons and instantons and solitons, these are all important features of non-perturbative quantum field theory. But most of the stuff that we do at like particle colliders is perturbative. So does that mean human actions are determined too? In some sense, yeah. Are you ignoring my simulation question because you're part of the simulation? I haven't seen your simulation question. What do astronomers mean by a black hole vanishing? I don't know. I don't know why they would say that. How far do you think we are from printing on an atomic level? Not very far. What's your favorite band? Maybe Beast in Black. Geometric unity is not taken seriously by anybody except Eric Weinstein. Why do I skip your questions? I haven't seen your questions. Does that mean human actions are determined too? I've already answered that. Maybe. Probably. If the universe is infinite, wouldn't there be a repetition like this exact thing happening elsewhere? Yes. Please validate my parsimonious universe theory. It contains the answers to everything. I doubt it does. Opinion on Ben Shapiro? I think he has bad political opinions. Do you ever listen to classical music or have any interest in opera? Not really. Do you think there's any merit to simulation theories? No. How hard is it to find jobs? Very hard. Very hard. Danny Goller, who I mentioned when I was on your live, wants to talk with you. I don't know who Danny Goller is, but anybody can DM me if they want to. What fields in STEM do you think will increase the most in jobs in absolute terms? I have no idea. Is the singularity eternal? I don't think that there was a singularity. Please come teach your university. Well, I would love to teach at any university. Why did my parents divorce? I don't know. Is there a black hole evaporation in GR? No. No, there's no black hole evaporation. I mean, you can add it. You can just kind of add it by hand, but it's not built into GR. Where do black holes lead to? Probably your death. Please explain what a Higgs particle is and why it's called the God particle because an editor of a book didn't like the name goddamn particle. That's why it's called the God particle. But it's just a fundamental particle. It's It's the particle that gives other fundamental particles their mass. What physics topics do you think are rising in popularity? At least in my community, it seems to be statistical physics and like integrable systems. Are there any negative mass? Not as far as we can tell. What is the Michelson-Morley experiment? Wrong. It's not wrong. Please explain why you can change frequency of an entangled photon without disentangling it. You can't change the frequency of a photon. I guess unless you redshift it, but that's just because you're looking at it from a different perspective. Does adding it to GR, what would happen to a singularity if well, it just disappears. It just, like, the singularity just doesn't exist past a certain time. My teacher said there's no time inside of a black hole. There is time. Not a physicist. I am a physicist. weird thing to say. By the way, like the lab, y'all. Air Spider, I saw your message the first 4 times. Don't worry. All matter gone, you're going to turn into energy, and then what happens? Matter's going to turn into other stuff, or it'll stay as matter. It's not going to turn into energy because energy is not a substance. Do you think the atomic printing could be applied to food production? I don't know. Maybe. Do you think it's good to pursue theoretical physics like as a career? It's not easy to find jobs. No, not at all. But it is a good career. It's fun. I like doing it. Does dark matter repel normal matter? No, it doesn't seem to. That would be, we would be able to detect that. Did your parents work or study in physics? No. Why is ice slippery? What wasn't it? Somebody said that there was a recent result on that. Would you go to the ISS for a month if offered? No, I don't think so. How do LHC results challenge or support the standard model, especially for supersymmetry? They don't really challenge the standard model. That's the problem. They're basically exactly consistent with the standard model. Which way do you have to turn a screw so you can tighten it? Clockwise. What's the state of electricity? Electricity is it's usually in a solid. It's usually just a flow of electrons or a flow of electric energy in a solid. What percent of the universe is made up of rogue planets? I don't know. Why do people that work in statistical physics unalive themselves? Is it really bad? A good question. What the hell is a supersymmetry? A supersymmetry is, well, we can talk about supersymmetric particles. Supersymmetry is the idea that matter particles have force particle pairs or force particle partners. And so a supersymmetric partner, like if you have an electron, which is a type of matter particle, a supersymmetric partner will have a force or a boson particle partner. But then there's also supersymmetric operators. These are operators that anticommute or have anti-commutation relations. They form an algebra. There's a whole story there. What's up with the flower of life? Absolutely nothing. Why do you think the singularity is false? Basically, every physicist thinks the singularity is not, like, there are no singularities. A singularity is just a sign that our math breaks down. What's the worst grade on an assignment you ever got in college? On an assignment? I don't remember. I'm sure I forgot to turn in some assignments, but I got A's. Thoughts on spontaneous collapse theories for quantum mechanics? If they can ever be proven, that'd be really cool, but I don't think that they don't seem right to me. Thoughts on determinism, like every action is based off previous action? Yeah, I'm a determinist, a quantum determinist, but still. What's your stance on the anthropic principle? It's good when you have a large sample size. Will you stay in Europe? No, I'm going to come back to the US. What do you think the singularity of a black hole could be? I don't think that there is a singularity. I think there's probably just some ultra-dense state that we don't have a way to describe yet. If not M theory, then what is your main theory of the universe? I don't have one. It's the coolest thing in your field being studied right now. In my field, compactifications of Minkowski space, I guess, and like alternative compactifications. What encouraged you to pursue physics? Black holes are cool. Do you speak any other languages? I don't. What's your favorite science fiction? On television, Star Trek. In books, Ender's Shadow. Can we ever definitely know whether or not the universe is infinite? To an extent, we probably can at some point. We could probably rule out other models until the only thing that's left is infinite. And then you use the whole, when all of the, what is the Sherlock Holmes thing? When all of the possible has been ruled out, all that's left, or you know what I'm talking about, right? Quantum mechanics or general relativity, which one do you think is more correct? Quantum mechanics. A new technique that keeps 2 photons entangled while greatly increasing the frequency of one. How do you increase the frequency of a single photon? Photons, I guess you could bounce a photon off of an electron and you could transfer energy to it. No, actually, you can't do that. There are no interaction vertices that have 2 photons. I don't think you can do that, but I'd have to look into the paper, I guess. Do you think we could be Boltzmann brains? No, I don't think so. Do you think inflation is legit? It seems plausible anyway. Do you think Star Trek is actually not science fiction? No, of course it's science fiction. Unless Irish unification happens this year. Do bananas release antimatter, specifically positron, every 75 minutes? Yeah, about, yeah. What is the source of magnetic moment of the neutron? Of the neutron? I mean, that's a really hard question. But it has valence quarks, and those valence quarks have charge. So that could plausibly be an answer, but it's probably way more complicated than that. How do interpretations of the second law of thermodynamics account for time's directionality? We think that time's directionality is determined by thermodynamics, in some sense. What are the fields of science are you interested in outside physics? Math, if that counts. Let me check. Is there anyone that I can send you to? All right, y'all. I'm going to end the live because I only do these for an hour and a half because it's really hard with my voice. Otherwise, I'd lose my voice tomorrow. So I'm going to end the live here, but I will upload this onto YouTube and you'll see it there. See you next time. Take care, everybody.